But the whole concept is about how do you balance these two stories and cull out information that is actually helpful while being cautious, yet taking the step of moving forward. And leaders today are struggling to bring that message out. Leaders are struggling to say what is cautious and how much can I push my team out to. It's about what stories that you pitch to your employees translates to your employees sending it out to the customers. It's a chain. So leaders need to be more and more cautious about the kind of messages that they're doing, the stories that they're talking about, how impactful can that be, while being cautious about the environment around them.
How do I become a better storyteller as a corporate leader?
Fundamentally, one has to start believing that you're a storyteller. We all of us are. In the whole process, we have got so much used to technology that we start saying that we are not storytellers. We just give data. When we start getting into the framework that I'm a storyteller, I start believing into that whole phenomena of stories and bring in emotions. We start becoming. That's number one. Number two is just being observant around us. And when we are observant around us, we start picking up stories. I have been doing a recent exercise of collecting culture stories with people, and I'm speaking to leaders. And as I do that, I can see difference in the way stories come in. People, when we get conditioned too much, the storytelling becomes more shrinking down. When we are not conditioned that this is how I should be talking, this is what it is, I see a plethora of stories that come up. The person is not articulative as in English, as a communication language, but the stories connect with me. The stories connect with people around, and you are in awe with it. So fundamentally, I realize that the more unconditional I'm in my thinking, the more emotion that I bake into it, the more beautiful it gets. And the more powerful it becomes. So when you start thinking that you're a storyteller, second, just be observant about what's happening around you. And you can pick up these things. It's not about the rush of life. It's just about that momentary pauses around. And you start picking stories.
I love the momentary pause, right? We call it coaching presence in the context of coaching competence. So powerful.
Yes.
I want to kind of shift gears here with a small linkage. What have been your observations, Siddharth? What kind of stories are leaders telling in the context of the pandemic?
It's actually a very interesting point. And I have heard leaders right across the spectrum. While the desire to get the numbers going, desire to see that the organization keeps running, getting the cash flow in, delivering client requirements on. I have seen leaders fluctuating between the spectrum of being absolutely sad. I wouldn't call it pessimistic, but feeling sad about the situation, to being highly optimistic about it. When at the peak of it, when I've heard leaders saying that things are settling down, get people in, I was very surprised because what kind of a message are you sending across to the others? Is that I'm reckless? Is that I don't care about who you are? So those are the stories that are coming out. To a spectrum where people were so pessimistic, you stay at home, you don't get out of place, you stick to where you are. But the whole concept is about how do you balance these two stories and cull out information that is actually helpful while being cautious, yet taking the step of moving forward. And leaders today are struggling to bring that message out. Leaders are struggling to say what is cautious and how much can I push my team out to deliver and doing things. It's just like I happen to get two newspapers, two kinds of newspapers. I'll not quote the names, but I'll just talk about it. And I have been reading about the COVID numbers. This was when we were actually at the peak of helm of COVID. Even today, when we're talking about it, both the papers have similar data points. The data set is same. But when the data set comes out to be same, I happen to notice a pattern. And one day, one of the papers happened to come in early, and I and my son were engaged in a conversation. And he said, "Dad, this is how the paper is talking about." And I just said, "Wait for the other paper, same data, you will see a complete different trend." And this paper was having a very, though the numbers were there, it started talking about where the decline is, where we have to caution about it, how things are, and all that. So I said, look at the other paper, it'll talk about hyping up the issues that are there. He said, no, it is not. So I said, bring the paper in. So when the paper came in, we read it together and he said, yes, it is. The reporter of one paper has written about the positive aspect of life, though he was cautioning about how the trend was going. But he was saying there's a glimmer of hope. Vaccinations have gone up, drives are happening, things are happening. We need to be cautious about wearing a mask, using the hygiene process, and so forth. While on the other hand, the paper was talking about the vaccination percentages were less compared to what happened yesterday. The number of cases in this area has gone up, while there were other places which has gone down. So what are we hyping? What are we trying to bring in the process? So leaders have to start thinking, how do you actually bring in a balance about what message are you trying to convey, how you're trying to convey. There's a lot of care, concern messages coming out. There's a lot of compassionate messages also came out. Initial drafting of messages had a mixture of things into it. So it's about what stories that you pitch to your employees translates to your employees sending it out to the customers. It's a chain. So leaders need to be more and more cautious about the kind of messages that they're doing, the stories that they're talking about, how impactful can that be, while being cautious about the environment around.